I don't know what was happening with that. That was
All
pretty
right,
good.
sorry guys, we had a little technical.
Yeah, a little technical difficulty. This sometimes this thing is a little bit different. The intro and all the rest of that stuff. Regardless, though, we made it. We're here. We got some recruiting stuff to talk about. Chris Mason. Obviously, we picked up a couple of kids today, and looks like there was a miss or whatnot. But with that being said, people were here. Chris Mason and I. What is this? The fourth night in a row? Third night in a row?
Third night at least.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
we've been pumping out a whole bunch of stuff, and we hope it doesn't stop. We hope we can continue to give you guys, nightly news about what's going on. Definitely, a lot of stuff to talk about. So, Chris Mason, with no further ado, go ahead and talk about the verbals we got today.
yeah, so the big one, obviously, that sort of set the internet on fire a little bit was Parker Livingston choosing Oklahoma instead of Indiana. And the Horns obviously took that very well and were very understanding about Parker's decision and his thought process and him weighing pros and cons. And, I'd like to thank the Texas fans for being the rational, respectful group that we've always known them to be over a player leaving them and going to OU. So thank you, Longhorn Nation. Your etiquette and your esteem are very well appreciated. So the wild part seems to be, Chris, that OU paid him around say 800K, and they paid a similar number to Trell Harris, and these are the guys that they really wanted. So he is a combined with Satania, and I'm pretty sure if Satania is coming back, that's like the most obvious thing out there. And Trell Harris, who we talked about last night. If that's your starting threesome, and we're going to talk about some of the impacts of that, the response to this situation. That's a good looking three. Those three wide receivers filling those spots. That looks like a good lineup. You've got 1,000 yard receiver basically in Satania. You've got a 900 receiver in Trell Harris, and then you've got a flanker, big target in Livingston, who's got 3 years to play. So he can kind of be the leader in your wide receiver room for a couple of years, depending upon how successful he is. Who's a bigger guy who can fill maybe the Keontez Lewis role and maybe be a little more, brings a little more juice to his overall game, better deep speed, bigger kid too. So I think OU, this is the two receivers they want, and this sets their receiver starting lineup, barring some changes, to help OU, help the OU Sooners in a passing attack move forward next year.
Chris Mason, I disagree with you just a tad bit.
Sure, go ahead.
I think Parker Livingstone is going to give you a combination of things, but I think it's going to give you probably more than what you got from Keontez this past season. Granted, he was hurt. And Giovanni Gibson, granted, he was hurt as well. But I think that this is a guy that comes in, and I think that you feel pretty good about what he can bring to this offense. And again, we talked about it last night. There's certain keys to this offense, and there's certain things that you need, and having a wide receiver like that can go get it done. And I think that OU is trying to create somewhat of an identity with all these big wide receivers that they're going to have. Manny Choice is going to be back next year. You made me think about that as well today when we were texting. But Manny Choice is going to be back. Pettit is there, right? And you have Livingstone. So you have your three big wide receivers, and then you
And
have speed elsewhere, right? Go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, and we think Jermichael Carter is returning.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we think that's good. So that would give you, like, to give you four names basically.
So there you go. Jermichael Carter 6'2", and everybody else about 6'3", 6'4", legit 6'4", right? So I think you're pretty excited about the prospects with those guys or whatnot. But Parker Livingstone again, was a guy outside of me hating on Texas or whatnot. I thought that he was pretty good this year. I thought that at least for the early part of the year, whatever they want to say, he didn't have this. I saw Anwar tweet out something about he only had 100 yard receiving games against this team and that and more or whatever. But I always felt like he was a good safety net for Arch to help Arch, give him time to get himself going or
I mean,
whatnot.
he's the only guy that made a play against Ohio State for the whole damn team, pretty much.
Yeah, and you kind of got to think about it too when Arch was going through his struggles early in the season, not the end of the season because he played his ass off, and I'll give Arch that. But early in the season, you kind of got to wonder what do some of these guys' numbers on that Texas team look like if he's hitting them because they're running wide open and guys are open this and that. So a lot of questions, a lot of this and that, whatever. But still, you feel pretty good about the prospects with a guy like that, getting him on campus, luring him away from that type of offense that can be prolific and what probably could be or should be with Arch and Sark together in year two of him starting, right? And you would think that, yeah, I think that we got a steal there with that guy, and you
Beat
didn't have to go out there and put up crazy numbers or, you know, have the whole fan base going in a frenzy because word got out that they're trying to get this guy this guy to get into the portal and then try to get him on campus, right? So it's just one of those things where you don't have to worry about all that now and having to feud with teams or whatnot. I think that you have your top two targets at wide receiver locked up. Now it may be time to still maybe do a little bit more work in that room, but we will get to that here in a second. But Chris Mason, we also got another commit. So go ahead.
Yeah, we got the guy we talked about, Kenny Ozawalu
Uh-huh.
from UTSA. He committed. He's a defensive end. Maybe he's a defensive tackle. There's going to be some confusion about that from some of the Twitter posts, but in his photos, he was with Miguel Chavis, and I think OU wants to use him as a big defensive end in their scheme. They kind of like that. And he's a redshirt freshman, so he'll be a redshirt sophomore next fall and give OU 3 years. And he's a big kid. I mean, could he be 300 pounds? Sure. I mean, the kid's got a huge frame. So he's explosive. The highlights I've seen look pretty good. This is something that he's coming in at a certain level, and I think Miguel Chavis has proven that he can improve, he can craft up, coach up, whatever terminology you want to use, defensive ends. And I think this gives OU a weapon that may not be a big weapon in 26, but in 27, this could be paying big dividends for the Sooners.
Yeah, it's somebody with good size, and you just never know. I mean, I'm really excited about. Um, Obviously, winter camp is is about to be here before we know it. Um, I pause because it feels like spring here in Oklahoma. Regardless, though, winter ball is going to be here, and then spring ball will be here before you know it as well. So definitely excited about seeing some of these guys, get into some of these camps and just hearing about, measurements, tangibles, this and that, all those different things that we hear about all the time, and just to hear that guys are healthy as well. I think that's something that we'll be excited about too. But definitely a piece that you add as somebody who can work himself into the rotation, but also somebody that could down the line be huge for you. So definitely like some of his film and all the rest of that. I guess Chris Mason keep on going.
And of course, OU, he visited Texas first, then he came to visit Oklahoma. So this is sort of another, if you want to be petty about it, another win by Oklahoma over Texas in the portal. So, we'll take that pettiness for a second. But yeah, those are the two commitments. And then obviously we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the fact that a guy we've talked about for the last two nights who seemed to be all set to go to OU changed direction and signed with USC. I wasn't actually exactly. I'm not sure. Did he even? I think he visited USC. I think so. But Mark Van Summeren, the defensive tackle from Michigan State, apparently went to USC, and USC is paying him a bag that OU was not willing to match under any circumstances, paying him elite defensive tackle dollars. And OU's got some elite defensive tackles, so they're not going to pay Mark Samarin that money. Good for him. Not from a development standpoint or any of those issues, but He can collect that bag and go into the portal next year, maybe, and go to somewhere that actually knows how to play football. They don't have a defensive coordinator right now, so I don't really know who's going to be there. I think everyone thought they could get Kwiatkowski, but he went to Stanford. There's some rumors of Al Golden, but I've not seen that pan out. I think Al Golden wanted to go to the pros. I'm not sure if that pro experience went how he wanted to go, but that's that's regardless. You've lost Van Summeren, so OU's going to have to go back into the portal to find a defensive tackle, and this is one of the concerns we had when you lost Marcus Strong, is that the overprice. Everybody needs D line, so it's an overpriced market.
Mm-hmm.
So you were concerned a little bit once you found Van Summeren and you canceled on Sigler, who isn't going to Auburn, maybe now is going to Alabama. And you're just seeing and Texas Tech is gobbling up mid-range defensive tackles and defensive ends like Pac-Man. I'm not sure they get anybody as good as Bailey and Hunter, but they're certainly getting some kids. So some players like Owen Waffle chose Duke. I don't know what that's kind of an odd situation there, but maybe he's just looking for somewhere he thinks he could start. And he was maybe. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say we got to put that to rest now. Not because of you, but just because if it's third team and it's not OU, I think just with Waffle, you just like go do what you got to do.
Well, maybe the name's right? He's waffling,
Yeah.
so he's waffling on where he needs to be and what his future should be. So just a lot. There's a lot of strange things going on in the portal. So OU losing Mark Summeren, Van Summeren. Okay, I think we can handle that hit. It does mean that OU has to go back in the portal looking for a guy.
So
there's some names that have been floated by various sources. George Stoya has floated Illinois defensive tackle, and you're going to have to bear with me here. Tomowa Durajay or Durajay. Tomiwa Durajay. I would say
first shot. Keep it going. No. You don't have to say it again.
He's from initially. He was at FSU. Before FSU, he was at West Virginia, and before that, he was at Kentucky.
Okay.
So he's a portal. He's a Diamond Medallion portal member, according to some people on some message boards. He had a pretty good year at Illinois this year. He was an honorable mention, All Big Ten player. Got tackle numbers weren't high, but he had sacks, tackles for losses, forced fumbles, quarterback hurries, that sort of stuff. So he did a pretty good job for Illinois. He says he's 6'5", 300, so he's a big kid. Would fit OU perhaps needing another big body for that. Whether OU can get him in on campus and get an agreement with him, I think is somewhat up in the air. I don't know if OU is going to kick the tires on the Pittsburgh kid, and see if he's a possibility. Other names they looked at is the Pittsburgh kid is Francis Brew. And then there's a big kid, another big kid from Illinois, Eli Cohen, who's like 6'7", 290. And then one last kid, Ikenna. He is Nigerian based upon his Twitter link. And the Nigerian flag is flying there. I believe that's Nigeria's flag. Maybe I have that wrong. Ikenna Izu Ogu. He's killing me with these names here. I need a phonetic explanation. So OU's looking at some names, but they're going to be scrambling a little bit for this, and it's a hard market to find someone worth giving money to who's going to take the money that OU has. If that makes that's kind of an abstract phraseology, but there's guys OU could add, and they may not add any value to the rotation, right?
Yeah.
And then there's guys that they could look at, and would be good in the rotation, but the market's just pricing OU out. So we'll see what happens there. Got to kind of figure that thing out. On a positive side, they do have two more offensive linemen coming in to visit. Peyton Joseph, a big offensive guard tackle from Georgia Tech, had kind of an uneven year with Georgia Tech. Very talented kid. He has several years to play, so that would be a nice addition. And then there's I track this guy's name down, and then there's a guy who has 2 years to play, Luke Work, an offensive tackle. He's like 6'5", 300. He would have at least 2 years to play as well. He's going to come in. So these are some guys I mentioned that OU is going to continue to try and add some talent and some depth to the room, and just try and bring some guys who have several years to play.
So, Chris Mason, I do want to backtrack just a little bit. Thank you for that tidbit about the offensive line. But three positions right now that I am kind of eyeing, I'm looking at. So, obviously, we talked about defensive tackle. I think that they will make the right moves, and it may be a smaller school type of guy, but I think they will find somebody who has some production. I think at some point, especially next week, I think that's whenever you'll start seeing people, having to kind of make decisions, especially those guys who have a chance to play at top programs, right? Like a OU, like a Bama, places like that, to where they have to kind of make a decision, right? And that's the thing about this staff right here. Sitting here talking right now, we don't know who the hell they're talking to, because they've had people, again, this DN that we just took, snuck him on campus. Not too many people knew anything about that. But that's what I was about to turn to. Obviously, shout out to Drew. Drew is our guy. Drew is a great football coach, but also he's a podcaster as well, and always has a lot of great info and great tidbits too. But linebacker and running back, I would say, what are we doing there? Well, what else are we doing there? We know we have the Avant kid. We know we're talking to Cole Sullivan. What's the latest on that, if you have anything? And then also, where else are we going? Because the ESPN kid, or the Chambliss kid, is going to
Nebraska.
Then I think the ESPN kid just
Went to Colorado.
Yeah. So
I think it's Cole Sullivan. They're putting all their chips in with Cole Sullivan and trying to stop him from going back to Ann Arbor.
Okay.
No one has a good answer on this. So Brent apparently went out to visit him. I don't know if he took the entire linebacker quartet with him or if he went by himself, but he did an in-home visit with him. So we've at least gotten parity there from that perspective. And I think the kid's deciding whether he wants to stick with Michigan and maybe what his family would like, or be coached by Brent Venables and the OU defense. So it's a little bit of that internal battle from that perspective. So no one knows what's going on with Owen Heineke. I think Kip Lewis is coming back. If you get Cole Sullivan and you add in a Samo Musigo, and then OU wants to start developing James Nesta. So if someone says they know what's going on with Cole Sullivan, then that would be news to me. Everyone seems to be in we just don't know. So just unsure right now, just don't know. So if OU doesn't get him, I think they double back onto Owen Long, and maybe they double back onto some other linebackers that they're kind of keeping an eye on, although the linebacker group is starting to thin out a little bit. From the Va-Tech guy they were looking at went to Bama. As you said, Owen Chambliss chose San Diego State, although poaching kids from Nebraska apparently is very possible. So we'll see what happens there, although he did follow his defensive coordinator to Nebraska so that seems a little harder thing to knock. But that's what's going on at linebacker. There's nothing else going on at running back right now, Chris. There's no other there's no rumbles of anything at running back. The only piece of news we have is that C.J. Baxter seems to enjoy the social media interactions with Jim Nagy and Lake Dawson, and that's it. But it could mean there's lots of guys that the coaches follow back and nothing happens. Sometimes it does turn into something, but right now it's nothing. So I think they're going to focus on squaring away the defensive tackle situation. I think is the number one priority at this point, and then the additional O line kids because it's not a great O line group. So if OU can carve out as many O line pieces and get them signed, ready to be on campus, that's a good thing for the Sooners. If they could get two more, I think that would be at a minimum that would be great. If they can walk out of this with four portal additions, that makes a lot of sense.
Bless you.
Sorry about that.
Well, oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Keep going.
So that's where we are. I think it's defensive tackle, and then it's getting these last offensive linemen, carving out as much quality as we can from a thin group that's being picked off left and right.
Yeah.
So, and then I'd like to think OU will use the February signing day to add a couple more players into the mix. So that's where we are right now with O line, defensive tackle,
You said wide receiver. What did you say? I'm sorry.
O line, defensive tackle. I think are the next two priorities.
Hmm.
They got a wide receiver. I think they're going to bring in for a visit, and we can. But I think before we talk about that, we got to talk about the exits.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So obviously, OU lost two wide receivers today. They lost Ivan Carrion, which we kind of suspected. They lost Zion Kearney late yesterday after we did our pod, I believe. And they also lost Giovanni Gibson, which I think is of the three guys, that's the kind of the biggest blow. So with the loss of those three guys, and there are three big wide receivers, you do wonder if OU will look to bring in one guy as a replacement. And obviously, Davian Dozer from App State is somebody OU just offered. He's a big guy with a high, his received yards per catch or stats are silly. He knows Satania. They were at Arkansas together. So I think OU will bring him in, and that could be maybe a one-for-one kind of swap.
You don't think that I know we talked about it earlier, but you don't think that they're gonna kick the tires on the Trey Richardson kid as well? Do you think that they just stop at one?
Yeah, I think Parkinson and Parkinson. I just combined his name. Parker Livingston, as the big flanker, and then I think you have Trell Harris on the other side of Satania. We've got two kind of Satania guys coming in. So if you think about it, you've got the Rogers kid is very much a Satania kind of player.
Mm-hmm.
So I think an OU definitely wants to start getting there. There's definitely the Dozier thing is going to be interesting because there's definitely two forces at work. Obviously, you want to have as deep a wide receiver room as you can, but OU badly wants high school wide receivers being developed and playing.
Mm-hmm.
So those are two opposing forces from a little bit, right? Do you get another portal guy? And that's another guy you're putting in front of the high school guys that you want to develop, especially the big kids. You want to get Manny Choice and you want to get Jaden Petit. You want to get going with those guys. So,
I get it. I get it. But you still have to wonder. First off, Raggins is going to be gone. I'm just thinking for numbers in the rule. I think Raggins is going to be gone at some point. Then also, you have to wonder what happens with Jermichael Carter, and then also, I think he should be on scholarship, but Jacob Jordan, what is going on? Those are kind of the three guys that I'm eyeing right now as far as what happens with that, because then you still need to go and make sure you have those numbers, right?
yeah, I mean, so and is Jordan really an everyday wide receiver in the SEC? I don't know that question, but he hasn't been to date. So, all right. So based upon the new math I just did, the wide receiver room is 12 players
Okay. Currently.
So Satania, Carter, and Harris. That's Trell Harris added. That's Jacob Jordan. Sorry, that's not right. So Martin's down. Livingston will be a sophomore, right?
I believe. I thought.
He was a redshirt freshman this year, right?
Let me see.
Pretty sure.
Anybody in the chat know?
Just double check that. All right, OU's at 13 wide receivers. He's either a sophomore or a junior, so it doesn't really matter about the count. So
Yeah,
Chris,
he's a red shirt. He's a red shirt. It look like he has 3 years. Really.
yeah. So ignoring the four freshmen and Okafueleze isn't enrolling until August, so I think that's kind of an obvious red shirt.
Yeah.
So, ignoring the four freshmen, you have nine receivers in the room right now. Choice, Thomas Livingston, Raggins until he enters the portal, Jacob Jordan if he's sticking around on scholarship, and then Satania, Carter, and Harris.
So
And
that's
then
9.
that's nine. And then Pettit, Rogers, Jasir Rogers, and Daniel Odom all enrolled in January. Is 13 too many? Do you need another guy? Or are you good with that number and you need to start push? And you've got three senior receivers: Satania, Carter, and Harris. So you got three seniors. And you need to start pushing some of your younger guys into the rotation. So I don't know how you blend. I don't know how you make that call. We have the slots, Chris, for that. Your OU's at right around 88, 89 scholarships with all the departures, and they're up to 22 exits
Yeah.
and 9 additions. So just from a one-to-one swap basis, OU has 13 more slots they can use for this portal class, and I don't think they want to sign 22 portal kids.
No, and I get that. I just think that for me, still, I got to look and see what that room is going. What else is going to exit out of there? Because if you lose Carter or whatnot, there
I think
again,
if you lose Carter or anybody else, I think Raggins is pretty much. Let me make a change here. Sorry, that's 12. They're now at 12 guys with Raggins and Jordan.
yeah.
So
I
maybe
think
you.
depending on what happens with them, I think it's one of those things where you may go and look at one more. I get the whole thing about development and all the rest of that stuff, and I'm here. I'm all ears for that, and I'm here for it as well, Chris Mason. But still, numbers wise, because at the end of the day, um, attrition has set in on
Yeah.
certain parts of the team, and so you still got to think about that too.
So Davion Dozer would be a junior in the fall, so he gives you 2 years. So that works from a staggering class perspective, right?
Yeah,
He's not another senior because four senior wide receivers isn't really helping you, right? That's just from a development, rotation standpoint. You want to get out of the wide. The wide receiver game in the portal is just ridiculous from a price perspective. You want to get out of that as soon as possible and start having your development get going. You have two wide receivers already committed for 2027. They've probably got at least two other targets there. So from that perspective, if you can start getting some, and they got one of those kids, Discern, I think would be a freshman you could play. He's unreal speed and athleticism wise. So you've got some decisions there. So you're at 12 right now. You'd have 11 guys for spring, and one guy joining in the fall right now. So I could see Dozier being a fit as a junior. I mean, if you could swap Joe Dozier for Raggins, you probably take that, right? And say, yeah, that's fine. I mean, Chris, one question: do you think you could play Satania, Livingston, and let's just say Manny Choice as a threesome at wide receiver? Is
I,
Livingston flexible enough to play the other spot?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe he's gonna. I think that the difference between he and some of the other guys that we had this year is that I think that he he's gonna add that big play capability because we saw him do it last year. Again, 500 something yards, 20 something catches. You can say whatever you want to say about him, but again, I think 6'4" target that can run and that can get open. I think that you may he's gonna make life easier on Satania. I really do believe that.
Well, one interesting thing, just away from OU, but more big picture portal. Washington is saying that they are going to pursue all legal avenues to enforce Desmond Williams' signed contract.
Oh wow.
Like, dude, you signed a contract. You're not a free agent. And this is where we need to get to in this game, right? Sign contracts, guys locked out of the portal for 2 years, play your contract. That's
Yeah.
what we need to get to. So, but that's going to be interesting. Um, there was a tight end on campus from Yale, of all places. This was mentioned by both Sooner Scoop and OU Insider. They both sort of had this information at similar time. His name is Spencer Mermans, and he's 6'6", 260. So OU's not messing around in terms of big dudes who can block.
Watching the In the Weeds today about Hanson, and then watching some of the film that my uncle you sent on Rocky Beers, you kind of sit there and think like, shit. I think that we may have found some tight ends that can do both. I was like, we're all here. Oh yeah, you gotta get your blocking tight ends, and then you got to go and get you a receiving tight end. And the thing is that both of them can turn into receivers, especially Rocky Beers. So I think if you get another third to go in there, I think that tight end room is going to be in pretty damn good shape. We'll talk about some national stuff here in a second, but I want to get back to that Washington thing. But no, I know they're still looking for a third because we talked about that. Have they kind of parted ways or separated themselves away from the Honey kid now, or what's going on with
I
that?
don't have an update on him. Ashcraft, I think, is signing with USC. They gave him a big contract,
Okay.
which is kind of bizarre. I mean, tight ends. I mean, everyone's folks are like, if you haven't watched Gabe and Teddy's review of Hayden Hanson on YouTube, guys, please do so because Gabe actually looks happy about something that OU's trying to do in the run game. So that alone just makes it worth watching. But when you just watch this kid Hanson moving around, I mean, when they showed him blocking one-on-one defensive ends, NFL defensive ends in the SEC, I think OU, whatever they paid for Hanson, I think it's going to pay off for them on the field next year, just for having a guy that big, that talented at tight end to just make our offense that much more flexible. And he's a good receiver. I mean, Gabe echoed what we've seen from some other guys looking at the film who said he's wide open all the effing time. He could have easily had 50, 60 catches and 600 yards of offense. They just wouldn't throw him the ball or would throw him the ball late or other stuff. And I think down on the goal line, I think he'll be invaluable in terms of play action stuff. Not that we settled for too many red zone field goals, but there were definitely some times we could have used a short touchdown pass to a tight end to help our efforts. But overall, I think so if you have those two guys, Beers, the Mermans kid has 2 years to play, so he would be this year and then next year. And I'll be honest, Chris, if you get the Mermans kid, I wouldn't shock me if OU didn't go for a fourth portal tight end, somebody who is a young, talented two-way receiving talent to add to the mix of Trene Washington and Tyler Ruxer.
So you see the question on the screen. People have been asking for it. What's going on with the tight end coach?
Yeah, so Leadpack has been rehired by Colin Klein as their tight end coach. That would appear to close that avenue, I think. So the name that's floating around everywhere and that would make a lot of sense, and you seem to think that maybe OU is working on a deal here, is tight end coach Brian Ellis from Alabama. That appears to be the guy. I mean, everyone's talking about Kevin Wilson moving to tight end coach. I don't think that's how you want to use Kevin Wilson or his best use for this team. He needs to be that offensive consigliere for Brent. He doesn't need to be a position coach. Plus, I don't think Wilson's really in the, we just lost a recruiting anchor. We need some guy who can help our high school recruiting efforts. And I don't think Wilson really is that interested in high school recruiting any longer.
Yeah.
So I don't think Wilson makes a sense. So right now I think it's Brian Ellis. And hopefully we will hear some good news that OU's been able to make a deal with him. He has experience working with Arbuckle at Western Kentucky. He has a good, deep college resume. He's done a good job with the Alabama tight ends. And I think if he wants to bring somebody, OU definitely has the roster spots to let them do that.
Well, there you go.
I mean, Cade McIntyre is technically still on the roster. I think John Locke is technically still on the roster, but I don't know that either of those guys are really going to factor in. One thing about Raggins and McIntyre that might play in is Raggins had a pretty bad knee injury, so if I'm Raggins, maybe I'm staying at Oklahoma an extra year to go through, make sure my rehab goes through properly.
Yeah.
And I've got no stats, no film. I'm light, I'm small, I'm fast, but I'm hurt. I'm not really sure where that gets you in the portal right now. So that could be a factor. McIntyre's been beat up as well. This could be a situation where OU just puts him on like a medical scholarship or something like that. I don't know where he is. That could be a conversation. He's just like, I'm beat up. I can't stay healthy. Maybe I just want to move on from football. And OU says, no problem. We'll just move you to a medical scholarship. I don't know that's the case, but all right, Michael. Yeah, if you look at his total resume, it's a deep resume in college. He has a lot of experience in a lot of different places. Their offensive line problems are the reason why they can't run the ball. Their tight ends have played pretty well.
You said they got guards playing tackle. No.
And they're not physical. I mean, my brother thinks what's his name, the big tackle Proctor is awful. He's like, please don't let the Bears draft Proctor. He's a guard, and they're not real physical. And I think to a certain degree, like OU, Bama just runs a finesse scheme.
Yeah, it's very finesse. It's very finesse.
So it's just, when we're talking about OU's going to have to make some philosophical changes to push a running game. Part of that's getting some big guys who can smack people, and they just brought two guys in and they want a third. So ideally, that changes the room entirely. If you watch Gabe and Teddy's stuff, Gabe is just talking about like all the zone plays that Hansen gives you and what he can do in the blocking game to really help your running game. OU paid money for him for a reason. So there's no word on Schmitty yet officially, but I think for at least a year they would let his deputy take over. And Schmitty's contract ends in January, so Brent's not pushing. I don't think Brent's pushing him out. But I do think Schmitty's just maybe ready to just call it a day. He likes Norman. He loves the town. So I think Schmitty would be like, if I could just retire in Norman. He's obviously made a lot of money being a strength and conditioning coach, pocketed it. So I think that would be an easy solution, at least for a year. But I think overall, you talk about how OU wants to play. And I think the tight end thing, tells us a lot about OU's future plans. Obviously, they're trying to, as I said, I think they might look at depending upon where Ozuwalu plays. Maybe they look at a defensive end too. Keon Keeley's going to Notre Dame, where he verbaled to out of high school, and Notre Dame kind of stole him at the last minute. I think that's not something OU will kick the tires on. Stephion Green committed to Alabama. To LSU. Xavier Gilliam is still out there, but no signs that OU's trying to re-engage with him. He would be one of the better defensive tackles to add, and if maybe OU gets to the point where the money for lesser guys is getting closer to what they need to spend on Gilliam, and we'll maybe push that. So I don't know. We're getting there. So Sooner Cowboys. That's a good question. I imagine he's going to get a big bag from somebody, and I don't know that he has any real connections to OU. So Michigan got poached for a couple more guys today. They got one of the guards coming back that was going to go to Texas. He returned to them. So there's a lot of activity going on, and like I said, I'm just hoping right now that OU is able to avoid what's happening at Washington or some of the other places, and hope that that works out. They're able to keep their guys and not have any blindsided surprises. To the best of my knowledge, OU's getting the bulk of the kids they want to return have signed deals. So I would imagine OU would be just as litigious as Washington would want to be if somebody's going to try and snag somebody who has a signed deal.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, and Washington has every right to do it.
And I'm
Well,
sure Jim Nagy
well, hold
explained
on.
that. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish your
I was
sentence.
just gonna say I'm not against NIL, but um, I'm a lawyer, so I could definitely tell you like you can't break those contracts. And I think some of these kids and some of their people are not necessarily reading these contracts. If they're actually signing contracts, a letter of intent is a contract itself because it's a legal. It's a it's an agreement. You could probably break those. There's no monetary, stuff involved in those, and basically, you could use the court of public opinion to kind of help expedite those matters, right?
Yeah.
This you can't necessarily do that because they're suing you now. So if you give somebody your word and you sign on the dotted line, especially like a kid like that who's already there at Washington, then I believe that they're going to, enforce that, and rightfully so, because that's a part of the NIL. And please don't stay up and watch these crazy YouTube videos that I'm sure will come out eventually. The dark side of NIL and this and that. They wouldn't let this kid out. Well, they're not going to let you out of a contract. They just guaranteed they have a 2-year contract where they're going to pay you north of $800,000, and you're breaking that. So I don't know. For me, I think for these kids, a lot of these kids, they got to be smarter about what they're getting into. Not only the terms and all the rest of that stuff, but you know, $2 million in you're making $2 million in California opposed to making $2 million in Florida, Oklahoma, Texas, places like that, where either the cost of living is cheaper, they don't have any state income tax or anything like that. There's a lot of things to go with that, Chris Mason, that you got to think about. When you look at the breakdown of there's a guy on Twitter, I forgot his name, but he breaks it down for a lot of contracts. Halliburton got that $260. Oh, I said $260, $260 million contract from the Pacers. And the way he broke it down was that there is you have obviously state and federal taxes. You have your agent that you have to pay their percentages. Then you also have something called a jock tax. So a jock tax, people, is a tax where if a kid is from Oklahoma, he goes to USC and he does not domicile there, meaning that he's going to live there permanently, then he's still in Oklahoma. So he's having to pay all that money there to all the taxes through Oklahoma, but he's also having to pay a jock tax for making money there in California. So that 2 million that you look at, that number turns into actually probably $800,000, what they eventually thought they were going to get you for anyways. So a lot of people don't really look into that stuff. I know I'm probably going way into it, way too deep into it, but at the same time, just trying to give you guys an idea of really what's going on. And so when you sign that dotted line, they kind of got you, especially something like that. Where on the West Coast, Chris Mason, those those tax brackets and those tax percentages and just the tax numbers in general are genuinely high. It's very very cutthroat out there. But I mean, those are things that you have to think about on the back end of this. But again, don't let this turn into a whole dark side of NIL. No, this is what you signed up for. You wanted to get paid, so this is what's going to happen. Chris Mason.
Yeah, and I think Oklahoma probably is in a better position than maybe some other places with having Jim Nagy negotiate these contracts with the agents of the players directly so that everyone knows, like, look, this may be college, but I'm an NFL guy and we're doing this. We're doing this. This is an NFL type contract. You're here for 2 years. You're signing this. Look at the escape clauses. Look at your options. Look at this contract completely before you sign it. Have a lawyer look at it. Have your representation look at it. But once you sign it, you're locked in. So I think OU has a by doing things on a more professional level with Nagy and Lake Dawson and those kind of guys. I'd like to think that OU is maybe insulated a little or as well prepared for these situations as much as possible. They're also saying the Big Ten is looking to assist Washington and will file with Washington in this case because it's generally believed that Miami is the school that's tampered, and as you know, Wisconsin already has an active lawsuit against Miami over the cornerback who left last season.
Yeah, and I mean, and Jenna James, I think that answers your question. He says, "What happened to the quarterback from 2 years back that walked away after 4 games? Didn't he? He ended up going to UNLV, and then he's going to Nebraska. But you look at
Is
that.
that Calandra? Is Calandra that kid?
I thought he was that kid, wasn't he?
No, no, no. He's from Boston. He flaked out of Boston College, didn't do well, and then went somewhere else and came back. That guy's a different guy.
Well, either way, if NIL was tied up into that, it's still on the school to actually, go after the kid. And I don't think
I mean,
anybody at
UGA is going after Damon Wilson.
yeah, I don't think
Who's
anybody at UNLV was in a hurry to go go after anybody. I think it was kind of good riddance. See you, sayonara. I mean, they ended up losing all their coaches anyways after that year. But yeah,
okay? So I don't know Chuck Kearney. Maybe I don't know. I don't know Jim Nagy personally. Um, and some of the stuff you're saying here. Okay, I mean, I think you want him to be the henchman, is what you want him to be, not a henchman. I don't know what a henchman is. So we'll see. But I just think OU is. I think OU from having a professional guy who's used to NFL contracts and NFL negotiation is in a slightly better place to hopefully have locked their kids down with as little loopholes for them to maybe walk away when somebody flashes a big money bag in front of them. But we'll
yeah. I mean,
see.
I
We'll
think
see.
these are things that all the coaches should be talking about as well. It would be part of my pitch. You would tell that kid, look, you can go there and they can tell you they're going to pay you $2 million at USC or UCLA, but after taxes, you're probably looking at around $700,000. We're prepared to give you $800,000 up front. You know what I'm saying? Like we're prepared to give you eight
I
hundred
mean,
thousand dollars
cost of living, all those factors, right?
cost
I
of
mean,
living, all the rest of that stuff. We're willing to work with you to give you that. I mean, that would be like that'd be the softest of soft pitches, but it'd be stuff. But when you already have that knowledge and you can tell kids about that stuff, and then also the simple fact that everybody in college football that's at a top program, especially they have some connections to scouts and stuff like that. Jim Nagy was all of that, right? So the whole thing is that it's not tough for him to get you where you need to go, but you got to have that pro potential because that's what he's looking for and that's what he said. But no, I just think that it's unfortunate that some of these things are happening, but these are the things that we talked about in the offseason, Chris Mason, when we went through NIL and how can we fix the whole NIL issue.
right.
I'm still a firm believer, Chris Mason, that we need to put a cap on the number that these incoming freshmen can have. I think that would be one of the first things that we could do to kind of categorize them in some type of way that would pay the 5 star the highest bid or whatnot, but having it to where it's 250 and down, $250,000 and down, make it even. Kids got to go, make it about football again, but also you could get paid once you get to campus or once you actually produce. But there's got to be some type of rules and regulations about that. But that's not this pod. We're talking recruiting people. But regardless, though, no, it's unfortunate those things are happening. But these are the things that have to happen for, unfortunately, the NCAA, the Empire, to actually do something credible, right? And I'm sure that they're trying, but just whereas I feel that if they let me and you have our way, we would have a chokehold around this thing. But for them, it seemed like they put all of Diddy's oil on their hand and are trying to choke this thing and just cannot. So go from there.
Yep. I mean, it's it's going to be an interesting reaction from Washington and the Big Ten and what happens here. I mean, uh, I don't think the court. I don't think the court of public opinion is exactly going to be in kids' favor. You
Yeah.
signed a contract. I think most people would say, did they force you to do it? Did they put a gun to your head? No, you had a chance to review it. You signed it, and um, and you should live up to the terms of that contract.
Yeah.
So we'll go from there.
Well, Washington, we'll see what's going to happen. Yeah, and that's the surprising thing is that you kind of obviously, our eyes are all on Texas. You get the pun there, but what is Kiffin doing, right? Because it looks like Chambliss and Lacey they're going to be staying at Ole Miss. Miami, Miami's looking for a quarterback. I don't know. I don't know. Cause and I thought Sam Levitt was going to Kentucky, and then who's
Did
that?
it? And then they stole the guy from Nebraska,
Yeah,
Minchie, and now it looks like Levitt's going to LSU,
yeah.
or I guess maybe Miami, because Tech paid a king's ransom to Sorsby.
That may be the portal battle of the year right there that we're not talking about, that nobody's talking about right now, that's coming, is Miami versus LSU.
For a quarterback. So
Yeah.
Boomer 580 saying Levitt's visiting Tennessee. That's spicy. Tennessee has some serious young guys on that roster. I thought Heupel was going to maybe turn it over to his high school quarterback process, but maybe not. Yeah, I mean it's and if Chambliss gets his waiver tonight, that puts Ole Miss in this battle too, right? I mean, I
Yeah,
think
it
I
would.
think I mean he's essentially claiming that tonsillitis is why he needs a medical red shirt. Okay. A for creativity. I'm not really sure that's really what they intended, but we'll see from that perspective. But yeah, it's definitely going to be. It's going to get met. It's a lot of programs are losing a lot of people, and a lot of programs didn't hit on the guys they thought they were going to hit.
Yeah, I think that's probably the story of the portal right now. That's probably the
I mean,
best.
yeah,
I'll say not
Coleman.
the best. That's the poor way to put it, but that's probably the top story out of the portal
A
right
lot,
now.
of, a lot of a lot of guys have leveraged the portal beautifully to getting bigger deals where they were. They were
Yeah,
comfortable someplace. Their agent said, well, "Let's just go in the portal to get a bigger deal." And some kids have done that very effectively. Isaac Brown looks like one of those guys. Jaden Bow looks like one of those guys that have effectively done that. The threat of the portal. Lagway's still circling the country looking for a new home. And last year, everyone thought he was going to be like the number two quarterback in the country. So it's a strange thing. The Coleman thing is probably going to end up as some bizarre auction between Tech, A&M, and Texas, with them all outbidding each other, and the only person they're going to end up paying is Coleman and his legal team and agent. So these are the messes OU staying out. But I would say, based upon everything that we've seen over the last 24 hours, I think OU adding a third wide receiver, I think, is the big story coming out of today. They need to find a defensive tackle, and do they decide to get a third portal wide receiver in with the exits that have occurred over the last 2 days?
running back as well. I'm interested. I don't think they're done. I think they may go and see what else they can do.
Well, maybe again, this could be a case where OU did what they did last year with Marvin Jones Jr. and Kendall Daniels. Guys hit the portal and agents tell them you're going to get X, right? And now they're in the portal for 10 days, and all they're getting is Y, and all of a sudden, and it's not really good looking programs or status programs that they thought they were going to get to play with, and maybe somebody rolls back and contacts DeMarco Murray and says, "Do you guys want a sixth running back?" And DeMarco may say, "Well, you got to talk to Jim Nagy, and you got to talk to Jim Nagy, Lake Dawson. I'll tell them to give you a call. Who's your representation? I'll tell them to give you a call." Caden Durham could be a guy like that. I don't know. Some of the running back spot, the premier running back spots are starting to disappear. Smothers to Alabama. FSU just grabbed a running back. Florida had kept their running back. Louisville kept their running back. So there's a lot of running backs flying around. Missouri just picked up another running back. I know they lost the running back. So, Lacey's staying at home with Ole Miss. But I agree with you, City Cowboys. I think he wants to be the man somewhere, and he's going to have to decide what level he's willing to choose.
Yeah.
So, from that perspective, he's a junior. He needs to play because if you're a running back, you need to get out of college by your junior year. If you have any real NFL aspirations, you don't need to be eating a whole bunch of damage and carries in college. That's just my opinion.
True Okie, I don't know. I really don't know. But we'll say words are saying Texas wasn't paying up. We shall see. It's a lot that's going to be developing. Chris Mason, is there anything that we need to say before we jump up out of here?
No, there's nothing left. We're
Hey,
good.
look, Kaizen Performance Fitness. Thank you guys for sponsoring these recruiting pods. Go out there and check out GFit and Merrill. See what they got going in Norman, Oklahoma. Again, that's Kaizen Performance Fitness. Thank you guys for sponsoring for the video. That being said, people, we do have one more thing that we want to show you guys. If it'll play.